All right, this is episode 2 of our OBS project, and this gives you a good look at our project truck that we bought. So it's just a standard cab, short bed. It's got the old Choo Choo Customs body kit on it. I have actually never seen one of these in person. I only saw pictures of these cab wing back deals. I sadly think this probably has to go, but we'll make that decision a little bit. Anyway, this episode we're gonna talk about wheel width and tire width, backspace, and how to measure that stuff so that we can end up getting a set of these on this truck. All right, so we have our project truck. We're up on the rack here. We got the wheel and tire off. You can see the leaf spring and the frame. It's all in pretty good shape. And now what we got to do is figure out, how much wheel and tire can we fit in here and what backspace do we need? And how do we get this wheel and tire, how do we choose it to replace this? Now I want to show you that here's our original wheel and tire, and we're about 26.5 inches in diameter, total diameter of the tire. And here's our new one, and we're about 26.75 total tire diameter. So even though you have a 15-inch diameter wheel and a 19-inch diameter wheel, the overall height of the tire hasn't really changed. Okay, so now you're wondering, well, how do you figure out the backspace and how wide of a tire we can fit in here? So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. All right, so this is a pretty awesome tool, and this was made by my buddy Scott at G&S Performance, and he was thinking about going into production on these, except they would cost like $500 or $600 a piece. So there's only one, and I got it, and it's awesome. Because you can bolt up a wheel and tire here and bolt it on the vehicle and make sure it's going to clear. And if it's a front tire, you could turn it and make sure it's going to clear and everything. The downside of this is there's only one and I got it. That doesn't help you very much. So I have a different tool. And this is a little tool I bought online from some guys called Ingenuity, Fab, and Speed. And this is a lot more basic. They just cut them out on the burn table and put stickers on them, which is nice because it makes it easier. And it comes with some of these slats, and I'll show you how it works. And I've used this a couple times, and it's pretty user-friendly. So I have it set right now on 28. This would be my tire diameter. So I know we're a little shorter, we're closer to 27. I could use the wing nuts here and adjust it down to a 27-inch diameter tire, but I'm going to show you real quick. I would bolt this up here, okay, and then it comes with these. So this is an 8-inch wide, 10, 12, and 14-inch wide to simulate the width of the tire, okay, and you could of course measure and adjust from there. I'm going to take the 10-inch wide one, and I'd show you. I'll go ahead and put it on so you guys can see. Oops. Let's take the little wing nut off. I gotta grab my part here. So you notice it's got a big slot in it. That's so you could theoretically adjust what would be your backspace. Okay, so I might bolt this on up here, and then if the suspension was far up enough to tell, I could move this back and forth to get it centered up where I wanted, and then I would tighten up the lug nut or the wing nut here. Right. Then I'd take this off and I'd measure, and it would show me how much backspace I could have. Now, this works, you got to understand. As well as having the backspace here, this is counting not only the wheel, but the bulge of the tire, if this is the whole width of your tire. Okay, and this is pretty user-friendly. You still got to buy this. So I'm going to show you another way. So we went from like $500 to $100 to some dollar store deal. And you guys are going to find out in this series, I like using masking tape. And I'm going to show you a lot of different things you can do with masking tape. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a long piece of masking tape, And I'm gonna try to go pretty close to my axle center line. And I'm gonna tape up to my inner and pull it kind of straight across it. I'm trying to keep this pretty close to 90 degrees. You know, coming 90 degrees level out this way. Okay, and once I have it taped on there, so I'm gonna just use my Sharpie. And I'm gonna put a line there, that's my inside. And I'm gonna look at where the sheet metal edge is here. And I'm gonna draw a line there, that's my outside edge. And now I'm just taking a straight edge. You can use a piece of angle iron or a long ruler or whatever. And I'm gonna just project it right up here. And I'm gonna put a mark. And my hand's kind of shaky, but we'll get it. And before I take this down, I'm going to do myself a favor and I'm going to label this outside in case I forget what I was doing. Okay, now I have a pattern, right? And this is the whole space I got, okay? So I got about 12.5 inches total. And I got about 7 3/4 to the wheel mount surface. So this is my inside. This line here, I'm gonna wheel mount surface. That's what you should talk about when you talk about suspension widths or axle widths or something. I don't care how wide the housing is or where the end of the lug nuts are or the axle itself. I'm worried about the wheel mount surface right here where the tire bolts on, wheel and tire, okay? Now, if I got a tire that was 12.5 inches wide, it would rub here and rub here. So I don't want that. I gotta give myself, you know, 3/4 of an inch or so on either side, okay? So if I take 3/4 off the inside and I take 3/4 off the outside, that's 1.5 inches. So my 12.5 is gonna become 11 inches. That's my max width. And I gotta take that off the inside to my wheel mount surface, but only 3/4 off the inside makes my 7 3/4 7 inches, okay? Now I'm gonna show you guys how to take this information and translate it into something that you can order a set of wheels and tires with. Okay, so we're in here at the blackboard, and you'll be many trips here for this series. And I already kind of have a picture of a wheel here, and I got my my specs, so I'm gonna put them up there so they're easy to read. And the first kind of thing I'm gonna figure out is how much tire can I fit in here reasonably, okay? So I know that I have 11 inches that's really the widest I can get sidewall to sidewall. So I got 11 inches. Okay, now, but they don't sell tires by inches. You always have these numbers, you know, 255, 40, 17, and 305, 30, 19, and things like this. Well, that's metric, and the first number they're always telling you there is the width of the tire. So if you want to buy a tire that's 11 inches wide, you got to convert 11 inches into millimeters. So the conversion, and it doesn't matter how wide it is in inches, is 25.4 millimeters per inch. So I'm going to grab my little Mr. Wizard calculator here, and I'm going to go 11 inches times 25.4 equals 279.4. Now, they don't sell a tire as 279.4. It's either going to be a 275 or a 285. They'll make a 280. But that's 5 millimeters, and 5 millimeters is a little smaller than a 1/4 inch. So I'm either being a 1/4 inch smaller than this or a 1/4 inch bigger than this. Either one I could probably play with. And I do a lot of research on Tire Rack, TireRack.com. And you can go start looking at a wheel that's maybe a or a tire that's a 275 or 285, and it'll tell you what size wheel it should be mounted on. So I went to Tire Rack, and I started looking for a 285 tire, and it tells me it can be mounted on anything from a 9-inch wide wheel to even they set up to an 11-inch wide wheel. But most of the spec wheel, when they measure them, they tell you that here's the spec we mounted on. was a 9.5-inch wide wheel. Okay, so that's what I'm going to shoot for. And that way I don't have to understand everything there is about wheels and tires. I just have to go to Tire Rack and use all the homework that they did. Okay, so now I know I want a 285 tire, based on that's the max tire I can fit in there. Then I'm going to mount it on about a 9.5-inch rim. Now I could probably use a 9-inch rim or a 10-inch rim, depending on the style of wheel you want and whatnot. But I'm going to shoot for this because I already kind of know where I'm going. So now I got to figure out what size, how much backspace or offset, and what the difference is. So here's some things you need to know about wheels. When you talk about a wheel width, so let's say this wheel is 9.5 inches wide. That's the inside to inside where the tire mounts. It's not the overall width of the wheel. With the wheel lip on either side, it's typically a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here. So I should have drawn some more in here, man. The total width of a 9.5-inch wheel is typically 10.5 inches. And this is where the difference between backspace and offset gets confusing, okay? Backspace is taken from the outside edge of the lip into the wheel mount surface. Okay, and offset is taken from the center of the wheel that's offset from the dead center of the wheel, the total width, to the wheel mount surface. Okay, so in one of them, you have to kind of count this 1/2 inch, and then the other one you don't. So here's what I started out with. I got 11 inches, or you can do it either way, 12.5, and I want to put a 9.5-inch wide wheel on it, which is really 10.5. Okay, well, if I got 12.5 inches total from my inside marker to my outside marker, and I want to put a 10.5-inch wheel in there, that's 2 inches. 12.5 minus the 10.5 is 2. 1 inch on either side makes it centered up. Okay. So my 7 inches, which went from here all the way to the inside, I'm going to subtract that 1 inch, right? And this will be 6-inch backspace. Okay. Now, how does that play into offset? Well, hopefully, if I'm doing the math right, if this is, 9.5 inches, right, and I go dead center is the same way if it was 10.5 inches. So if I work on this line, okay, 1/2 of 10.5 would be 5 1/4 to the center line. Okay, and that leaves me 3/4 of an inch from the center line to the wheel mount surface. Okay, now I'm going to use the same formula. 3/4 of an inch is 0.75 inches times 25.4. So again, I'll whip out the old calculator, do 0.75 times 25.4. And I get 19.5, and they don't do that. So I'm going to round it up. I'm going to say 20 millimeter would be my offset. Okay. Now, the lower you go, should I get a 9.5-inch wheel with a 20 millimeter offset? It's questionable, because the lower you go, remember the front wheels turn, they're going to start rubbing on the outside. So I added a little more offset on the wheels I bought. I bought 35 millimeter. Okay. And we're going to go see how that worked out. But hopefully that gives you guys an understanding of the difference between backspace and offset, how to convert your max width to a tire size, how to find a wheel size by going to Tire Rack's website, and how to figure out, you know, some of these dimensions so that you can order a set of wheels and have them fit. Okay, so we have the truck, we got the new wheels and tires on it. You can still see it. It sits kind of high now. You see how much gap there is on top of the tire. The front spacing, backspace works out just right. When this comes down, it's got to be tucked in a little bit so it doesn't rub. Now the rear, we may have a little too much backspace because I only got about a 1/4 inch between the leaf spring in the front and the tire. And these leaf springs taper out as they go forward, which is kind of goofy. So I have plenty of room in the back. I have minimal room in the front. We're probably going to run about a 1/2 inch spacer in the rear. I'm not a huge fan of spacers, but you know, to be honest, maybe missed the mark on the 35 mil backspace. Maybe could have went with 20 mil backspace. I wouldn't have any rub in here, but the front tire would be out a little bit and it might hit when we're turning once it's lowered. So you got to play the game. Again, so this is a 19x9 Zanetti wheel. We bought these from a place called Audio City USA online. They had a good price on them. You know, we're budget minded on this truck. I think they were around 200 bucks a wheel. So for a 19x9 wheel that fit what we wanted to do, they do all the machine work there. So they bore them and cut the backspace offset right there for you and then ship them out. It's a Kumo tire, 285, 35/19. I've never run this tire before. It's got about a 260, 280 tread wear. It should be pretty sticky. It should be good for what we're gonna do, and it should last fairly long. It's got a wide rain groove in it, and we're in the Smoky Mountains, so it rains a lot, so it should be pretty good. That about wraps it up for this episode. We do still have this fine set of these ICW wheels with these Cooper tires on them, and you can tell, see, it's got the little tips on them. They're still brand new. We're thinking that one full case of beer, not a can less, but one full case of beer, and you just have to come by with it. You can't call, you can't find if we're gonna be here. You just show up, and we would trade you 4 of these fine wheels and tires for one full case of beer. Now, before we head out, we're gonna show you something to pique your interest in an upcoming episode. Okay, so in an upcoming episode, we're gonna show you something about this front suspension. So right now, we have a stock OBS. It's all stock steering, stock A-arms, stock brakes. It's got about a 1-inch cut coil in the front, we figure. But everything else is original. And I wanna show you what these do as the suspension travels. So you can watch this wheel as the front gets jacked up and it's slowly turning inward. Okay, and you can see it there. And then as we let it back down, you'll slowly watch it turn outward. All right, now that's bump steer in action. You guys saw it just now. You know, the suspension's going in droop, turns in, goes into bump, turns back out. Okay, so what happens, you're driving down the road and one tire hits a bump and it changes direction. You wanted to go this way and all of a sudden this tire goes, oh, let's go that way, you know? And that pulls the truck over to one side or the other, right? Or both of them hit a bump and do this, or they both go through a rolling dip where they both drop down and they're gonna push inward and it's gonna get real squirrely and bump around. And that kills the driver confidence, right? You don't know what's gonna happen. And if you're gonna try to get it to handle real good, you wanna go into a corner, well, you get body roll, so you load one side and the tire steers away from the direction you want it to go. That's not what we want to have happen. So we're going to try to fix this in an upcoming episode. Anyway, that's going to be it for now. So make sure you subscribe and like and share it to your friends, and we'll see you next time.